The Power of the Patient Project, the National Library of Patient Rights and Advocacy, presents The Monthly Magazine, a monthly recap of our newest interviews with prominent healthcare providers and patients from across the country. Hosted by our celebrated broadcasted team, welcome to our monthly magazine. And here is your host, Millie Long.
The Monthly Magazine is a collection of some of our favorite interviews from this month featuring interesting people who talk about wellness and medicine as it affects you, the patient. In this month's feature, we will touch on topics such as a new look at breast cancer, aromatherapy, working with patients with catastrophic illnesses, and good leadership in healthcare.
Stress, anxiety, pain, addiction, and trauma can leave one feeling powerless. Imagine that after a very stressful moment, you can just smell your way to calm. In my interview with Nicola Salter, I learned about the science behind essential oils and how they release neurochemicals and neurotransmitters that could relax, calm, and ease pain and even help one perform better in school. Nicola Salter is an international mentor, quantum field practitioner, health math coach, educator, and author who uses aromatherapy at her center for a variety of purposes.
And I also work at an anxiety center where I use clinical aromatherapy, which I've been trained in, which is the use of essential oils to also support the release of anxiety, stress, post-traumatic stress, panic attacks through smell. So essential oils have a variety of uses, and today I'll be focusing a bit more on smell and the release of trauma and stress using essential oils. But in answer to your question, they can be used for topical application, they can be used for smell, they can be used for inhalation. And it's important to remember that essential oils actually are extracted from plants and flowers and fruits and roots. So they are a form of medicine, plant medicine we call it. And because they are a plant medicine, each of the essential oils that you see in the store have natural occurring chemicals in them. And some of them can have like over 100 constituents in them that can be very therapeutic to us when we put them on our skin, as well as when we smell them.
As a person who has had a great deal of anxiety and painful headaches for most of my life, I was really excited to learn about what Nicola had to share about her work with clinical aromatherapy to treat anxiety and pain.
I think you've probably all heard of dopamine. It's a neurotransmitter that can bring you feelings of pleasure, and we can often repeat patterns of behavior that bring on this pleasure to make us feel good. So some people will get addicted to drugs and alcohol and keep us in that continuous loop of a need for pleasure. And too much dopamine can actually release and create personality disorders and even addiction. Yeah. So this dopamine rush that we can get when we're trying to make ourselves feel better because we might be feeling stressed can actually be balanced and can even help reduce addiction by using essential oils like clary sage or cedarwood or lemon or lavender is a popular one, as well as chamomile, which you can see there in that cup of tea.
Nicola shared that aromatherapy can also be used to treat those who are struggling with addictions. As Nicola pointed out, oils in clary sage and cedarwood can actually rewire the brain.
In the International Journal of Neuroscience, they published a paper on the successful impact of inhaling lavender, the essential oil of lavender. And most people know lavender. And they found that kids had a better way of understanding their math problems and could complete problems faster when they smelled lavender and were able to answer these problems more faster, more accurately than the other group who were not using lavender. Also, the same thing with rosemary essential oil helped subjects be more alert and therefore they could complete problems that they were given much faster than the other control group.
Nicola also mentioned a recent study that shows that students perform better on tests in mathematics after being calmed with the smell of lavender and rosemary. As a former teacher, parent, and student, I could attest to the fact that school testing situations are very stressful, and when you're stressed, it is very hard to perform well on any test.
You should definitely have tea tree in your medicine cabinet. Tea tree is very antifungal and it's great for fungal infections on the skin, but it's also antiviral, anti-infectious, antibacterial. And you can use tea tree directly on the skin and straight from the bottle. You don't need to dilute it in a carrier oil, or you could put a few drops into a bowl of warm water and use it as an inhalation if you have a sinus infection. It's very diverse in its usages, and it's one that, you know, with the times that we've had with COVID, it's one that everybody should be using because it increases the white blood cells in the blood serum. So it's great for the immune system.
Even if you do not need additional support in handling emotional issues of stress, Nicola recommends having some tea tree oil in your medicine cabinet for fungal and viral infections. I really enjoyed interviewing Nicola Salter and found her work very intriguing. For those who would like to find out more about Nicola Salter and aromatherapy, you could check out her website and her book, Hot Water for Tea. About 12 years ago, I had a mammogram and they found a lump in my left breast. I had to wait over a week to get the lump biopsied, and then several days after that to get the results of that biopsy. Fortunately for me, the results were benign, but the wait time in between was really scary because breast cancer runs in my family. It was hard not to think of anything else.
It is not just a breast to any of the women that I treat. And to come alongside women in one of their darkest moments and to hold their hand until they see the light and have a plan that instills confidence and hope and they emerge from this journey victorious has been the greatest privilege of my career. And I couldn't imagine having chosen something else.
If that were to happen today, I hope I would be fortunate enough to have a doctor like Dr. Christy Funk, who practices as a breast specialist at the Pink Lotus Center.
I would be, I think, pretty empty having chosen that. When it comes to the Pink Lotus Breast Center and birthing that baby, I did end up finishing a breast fellowship at Cedars-Sinai and became the director of patient education there for 7 years, and was very frustrated by how long it would take to get really quality care for a woman. Even in this wonderful center, you would have a mammogram. Oh, we think we see something. Why don't you come back in a week and we'll look at it? Oh yeah, there is something there. You know what? We really should biopsy it. We can do that in 10 days for you. And it's like this drawn out thing. I'm like, you know, there should be seamless care. And the Pink Lotus Breast Center really fused state-of-the-art technology with this compassionate, holistic care in a warm environment that felt more homey to people, and it wasn't austere and white with big halls and frightening. So that was the motivation behind birthing Pink Lotus, was to just offer women more timely care. Like if you wake up with a lump, you should go to bed tonight knowing what it is. And you know, if it's the worst, it's the worst, but at least we have the truth and let's get after it. So
at the Pink Lotus Breast Center, Dr. Funk makes sure care is seamless, timely, and in a home-like setting. As Dr. Funk said, if you wake up with a lump, you should go to bed that night knowing what it is. If it is the worst, it's the worst, but at least we have the truth, and let's get after it.
Over the last 2 decades, we've seen that we've got a lot of dedicated breast surgeons, and therefore we're seeing a lot more aesthetic results. we surgeons are committed, to kind of creating small hidden incisions and reconfiguring, reshaping the breast after lumpectomy so it still looks as normal as possible. And post mastectomy reconstruction with implants and different flap techniques has also really evolved over the last 2 decades so that women can come out of their surgical experience feeling more intact inside their own skin, which is beautiful.
According to Dr. Funk, treatment has come a long way. We are seeing much better aesthetic results. In addition, cancers are less likely to be overtreated by radiation. The treatment is much more patient-specific. I was really interested in Dr. Funk's description of her Cancer Kicking Summit, where she addresses the benefits of fasting, meditation, metacognition, and exercise. You can download the 12 to 15 hour summit or attend it live.
This is so fun. So this summit represents the culmination of everything I've learned in my 25 plus year career as a surgeon, a physician and surgeon. And I distill all of the science down into actionable power that will transform your life. The target audience is truly every person who is interested in living her or his best life. Although I do have, it's a little bit more geared toward women because my springboard is breast, but the summit is not about breast cancer. It's called the Cancer Kicking Summit because if you're able to kick cancer, man, you've kicked it all those major killers, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, obesity, they're all after you. And the same thing that gets after reducing cancer risk will reduce all of your major killer risks. And men have all of those too. But I use the kind of springboard of breast because, I'm a breast girl. So I do talk about that, but not in specifics at all. So the conference is all about taking control of what you eat and don't eat, what you think and don't think, what you do and don't do. And I get down and dirty with this orchard of life. I have 10 trees that I want you to plant in your orchard to live the most fruitful, bountiful existence possible. And
Dr. Funk offers a wealth of knowledge and resources to help her patients connect and support each other. So please check out pinklotus.com/powerup for more information. Thank you.
Sometimes going through an illness or hearing that news from your doctor that could not be in your favor, it could be challenging for the patients and for the loved ones. And that's where I have the pleasure to talk to a therapist, counselor with many years of experience, Iris Weichler, who have written many articles, and her specialties is to dealing with helping those patients in hospital places and their families and loved ones.
The number of caregivers went way up by 10 million people. And one of the interesting aspects of that is in the Family Caregiver Alliance just sent statistics out. People between the ages of 18 and 49 needed help and needed caregivers. So much younger than you would imagine. And that was up. That was up 8% from where it used to be. And the other piece of it was that a lot of the people that had been caregivers, the average age used to be 49. But people in their 20s and 30s had to step up. Millennials, God bless them, were able to step up and help with the caregiving responsibilities because it was so chaotic and it was so difficult. And there weren't the normal resources that were available just weren't available to people. The other interesting part about it, I think, you described the symptoms that seniors feel. And what happened to caregivers, 10 to 20% increase in complaints about their physical symptoms. Primarily, they had more headaches, they had more digestive issues because they were so worried and because they were so anxious. They had more body aches and physical complaints because they were doing more of the physical, direct contact kind of caregiving tasks. And the other piece of it was that they expressed a lot more complaints in terms of their mental health. So caregivers reported a lot more depression and a lot more anxiety and a lot more uncertainty. And those numbers went went sky high when the
In
pandemic
my
happened.
interview with Iris, I really enjoyed when she explained about the part that as caregivers, sometimes it could be very overwhelming. Whether you are taking care of your loved ones, your parents, your family members, or working in a caregiver industry, it is very important to take care of our well-being. And she goes further about the resources, the counseling and free online resources that is available for those who want to find balance between their own well-being and at the same time being a good caregiver.
Again, because they didn't have the support that they needed as caregivers. And also many of them were in the sandwich generation. So all of a sudden they're having to take care of their kids and homeschool them while they're being caregivers for senior loved ones and other loved ones. And so they were extremely overwhelmed, and it was extremely challenging for them too. And then the other aspect, of course, that we all know is the financial stressors. People had lost their jobs, and also income was very uncertainty. And so some people who had financial resources to bring people in to help, all of a sudden that money dried up. So the responsibilities were on their shoulders as well. And that uncertainty about work was such a burden for so many people that it really contributed to the symptoms that I just described to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly that is very overwhelming and could cause a lot of struggle in mental health area, especially in pandemic. Now, therapy is very expensive. I mean, in some countries, it's very expensive, and
we're the worst. We're the worst here.
Yeah, it's not.
Our healthcare is just ridiculous.
Yes. So, for those who are in desperate need of therapy, what other resources is available, especially for those who cannot afford therapy sessions?
Well, one thing I would say, and this is what I worked in a hospital for many years, and one thing I would say is if you have people that are leaving the hospital, I would like that hospitals brought someone, and this is what I did. I would go in, I worked with every patient that came on my unit and every family that came on my unit. I worked with people with catastrophic illnesses. But before they're discharged, I would have someone, either a social worker or a psychiatric nurse, someone that can do an assessment and talk with the person that's leaving to figure out what kind of help they might need or that they anticipate. And then give them information about resources and referrals so that they're not just thrown out of the hospital without any help or resources.
Whether you are a nurse, a physician, a surgeon, a hospital executive, working in the healthcare industry could be challenging. You have to be able to have that leadership skills and decision making to be able to save patients' lives. I had a pleasure of interviewing Dr. Brett Barrett, whose specialty is in leadership and management skills in the medical industry. He emphasizes on the important role of executives in the hospital or generally in the leadership and structures in the healthcare industry.
Leadership is, it's assumed that you are either born as a leader or you develop the skills through your experiences and trials. And the answer is both. There's some people who have some natural characteristics, traits that allow people to draw to them and allow them to inspire and encourage and move in a specific direction. Others develop those skills over the course of experience. And I'm of the opinion that really anyone can lead. To what degree is the question? And where are you leading them? An even better question.
What I really connected in the interview with Dr. Brett Barrett was the part that he explained the importance of collaboration, the interdisciplinary skills that everyone in the place in the hospital or the medical industry need to be able to play their part and come together.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. We are post-pandemic, it's inevitable that we will see another pandemic or more healthcare challenges that will really test our strength, our ability, our skills, our ability to come together. And into the future, I think collaboration is the key. There was a time when it was espoused that we have a model of the physician being the captain of the ship, and that the physician gives orders, right? And everyone calls the physician doctor. And those days have gone by. It is more of an interdisciplinary skill that great clinicians collaborate and coordinate. I had a good friend, a cardiologist. He goes, geez, when I started out in cardiology, there was like maybe 4 medications I could give. Now I need a little handheld calculator to tell me what the possible drug interactions might be for a specifically prescribed drug. And, it spurred the conversation about the importance of having a pharmacist on the team to discuss the medications that are administered. When I was running a hospital, on average, every patient had at least 7 different type of medications that they were receiving. Can you imagine how complicated that can get? So I think collaboration, interdisciplinary, working together becomes very, very, very important. And we've seen that in the pandemic. Let's admit, as a healthcare provider, very few people knew where you worked. The only indication they would have was a big blue sign with a big H on it that said hospital. Other than that, not so familiar. Today, our friends outside of the healthcare space know about personal protective equipment and ventilators and ICU bed. We're elevating the awareness of our profession, and we're going to draw in other professions to help us tackle really, really tough questions. So I think the key for future leaders is collaboration and interdisciplinary action.
And that's our monthly magazine. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed this video, and we invite you to visit our website, thepowerofthepatient.org, to see these interviews alongside hundreds of others. Also, be sure to follow us on all social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Millie Long with the Power of the Patient Project.